Kindness is powerful, but when it's misunderstood, it can turn into a weakness. Too often, the more kind we are, the more some people think they can walk over us. But here's the truth: real kindness doesn't mean being a doormat. It means knowing your worth, setting boundaries, and standing tall. While keeping your heart open, let's talk about why your kindness makes people disrespect you and how to flip that script. Kindness without boundaries invites misuse, and this is one of the hardest lessons many people learn in life. At first, kindness feels like a gift, something we give freely because it's who we are. We want to help, to support, to show up for people, to be the one others can depend on. But when kindness is given without limits, when it lacks the guardrails of self-respect, it often stops being seen as kindness and starts being taken for granted. People begin to assume that you will always say yes, that you will always adjust, that you will always sacrifice your own needs to accommodate theirs. And once that assumption is made, kindness turns from a strength into a vulnerability. Think about the times you've gone out of your way for someone. Maybe you stayed late at work to finish a task that wasn't your responsibility. Maybe you lent money you didn't really have. Maybe you agreed to plans when you were exhausted because you didn't want to disappoint. In your heart, you were simply being kind, but in the eyes of some, that act of kindness wasn't a favor, it became an expectation. The next time, they didn't even thank you. The next time, they didn't ask politely, they just assumed you'd do it again. That's what happens when kindness has no boundaries. It stops being seen as generosity and starts being treated as obligation. The truth is, people are always watching how you treat yourself. If you treat your time as if it doesn't matter, others will treat it the same way. If you allow yourself to be stretched thin, others will keep stretching you until you break. It's not always malicious. Sometimes people don't even realize they're taking advantage. But whether intentional or not, the result is the same. Your kindness loses its value. What once was an act of generosity becomes invisible, expected, routine, and when something becomes routine, it is rarely respected. Boundaries don't mean becoming harsh or unkind. Boundaries are the structure that protect your kindness from being misused. Without them, kindness leaks into every space until there's nothing left for yourself. Imagine water in a river. When it has banks to guide it, that water can flow strong and purposeful. Without banks, it floods everywhere, causing damage, losing direction, and eventually drying up. Kindness without boundaries works the same way. You may think you're being endlessly giving, but without the banks of self-respect, your kindness spreads too thin, leaving you drained and leaving others blind to its value. Some people will test how far your kindness stretches. They will keep asking, keep pushing, keep pulling, until you prove that there is a line they cannot cross. If you never draw that line, they will keep going. And here's the hard part: they won't see themselves as doing anything wrong. Why? Because you allowed it. You said yes when you wanted to say no. You stayed silent when you should have spoken up. You lowered your own needs to elevate theirs, and in doing so, you taught them how to treat you. When kindness lacks boundaries, it sends a silent message: my needs don't matter as much as yours. And people will believe that message. They will begin to see you as someone who exists to make life easier for them. They will call you dependable, reliable, even selfless, but underneath those words often lies a lack of respect. They respect the benefit they get from you, not you as a person. That's the painful part, realizing that the very quality you thought would earn love and respect can sometimes do the opposite when it isn't paired with strength. The truth is, kindness was never meant to be endless giving. Kindness was meant to be intentional. It's meant to lift people up, not drain you down. But when you have no boundaries, your kindness becomes a resource people exploit rather than a gift they appreciate. The person who always says yes isn't seen as kind after a while. They're seen as someone who can be used. And once you're seen that way, disrespect naturally follows. Because why would anyone respect what costs them nothing, what requires no effort, what never pushes back? That's why kindness without boundaries doesn't inspire gratitude, it invites misuse. It doesn't build stronger relationships, it weakens them. It doesn't elevate your presence, it diminishes it. And little by little, the respect you deserve slips away, not because you weren't good enough, but because your kindness had no structure, no edge, no guardrails to show others that it mattered. Respect starts where self-respect is visible, and this is one of the most overlooked truths in human relationships. People take their cues from how you carry yourself, how you talk about yourself, and how you set the standard for how you should be treated. If you consistently put yourself last, if you allow others to disregard your needs, if you minimize your worth, you unintentionally signal to the world that you don't see yourself as valuable. And when you don't show self-respect, others find it harder to offer you the respect you deserve. Think about someone you admire. What makes you respect them? It's not just their accomplishments or the way they treat others. It's also the way they carry themselves. They walk into a room with a sense of presence. They speak with confidence, not arrogance. They set limits on their time and energy, and they hold firm to those limits without apology. This self-respect doesn't push people away, it actually draws people closer because it communicates value. People respect what is clearly valuable, and when you show that you value yourself, you teach others to do the same. On the other hand, when someone constantly puts themselves down, when they allow others to dismiss them, when they act as if their voice doesn't matter, the people around them often mirror that behavior. It's not that those people are always cruel or intentionally disrespectful. It's that they follow the model being shown. If someone treats themselves as insignificant, others unconsciously begin to do the same. Self-respect is not just about how you feel inside. It's a mirror that reflects outward and shapes the way others treat you. Self-respect is visible in small actions. It's in the way you say no when you mean no, without over-explaining or apologizing. It's in the way you protect your time instead of letting it be consumed by people who only take and never give. It's in the way you take care of your body, your mind, and your emotions, showing through your actions that you believe you are worth the effort. People notice these things, even if they never say it out loud. They notice when you walk with confidence. They notice when you refuse to settle for less than what you deserve. They notice when you treat yourself like someone worthy of care and respect. And when they notice, they respond in kind. The reason self-respect is so powerful is because it sets the baseline. It becomes the starting point for every relationship you have with family, friends, co-workers, even strangers. If you respect yourself, you won't tolerate constant disrespect from others. If you respect yourself, you won't keep chasing people who don't value your presence. If you respect yourself, you won't allow toxic patterns to repeat endlessly. This doesn't mean you never show patience, kindness, or forgiveness. It means those qualities come from a place of strength, not desperation. Without visible self-respect, kindness and generosity can be mistaken for weakness. People may assume you're helping because you have no other choice, or because you're afraid of rejection, or because you don't see yourself as worthy of saying no. That's how respect begins to erode. But when your kindness is paired with clear self-respect, the message is entirely different. It tells people, I choose to give not because I have to, but because I want to. That difference is everything. Choice commands respect, while compulsion invites exploitation. It's also important to understand that self-respect doesn't require approval from others. It isn't about being loud, defensive, or constantly proving your worth. It's about carrying yourself in a way that shows you know your worth even if no one else acknowledges it. This quiet confidence speaks louder than words. When people see that you treat yourself with dignity, they think twice before treating you with anything less. Respect starts with what you allow and what you refuse to allow. If you let someone repeatedly ignore your boundaries, they'll continue to do it. If you let someone speak to you with disrespect, they'll keep speaking that way. If you accept treatment that diminishes you, it becomes the norm. But when you draw a clear line and back it up with consistent action, people learn quickly that disrespect is not an option. Self-respect is not selfishness. It's not arrogance. It's the foundation of every healthy connection you have. It tells the world that you matter, and because you matter, the way others treat you matters too. When you show respect to yourself, you shift the standard of how people approach you, what they expect from you, and how they respond to you. That's why respect from others doesn't begin with them, it begins with you. Saying no is still an act of kindness, though for many people it feels like the opposite. We often associate kindness with always saying yes, always being available, always accommodating the needs of others no matter what it costs us. But true kindness doesn't come from emptying yourself until there's nothing left to give. It comes from honesty, clarity, and respect, both for others and for yourself. And sometimes the most honest, respectful, and ultimately kindest thing you can do is to say no. When you say yes to everything, you're not actually giving people your best. You may be physically present but mentally exhausted. You may be agreeing to help but secretly resenting the situation. You may be showing up for someone else while quietly neglecting yourself. Over time, this builds frustration, burnout, and even bitterness. The very kindness you are trying to extend becomes tainted because it's no longer given freely, it's given out of obligation, guilt, or fear of letting someone down. That isn't real kindness, it's self-sacrifice without balance, and it can slowly erode your well-being. Saying no, on the other hand, is an act of kindness because it keeps your yes meaningful. When you say no to something that drains you, you preserve your energy for the moments that matter most. When you say no to someone who constantly takes without giving, you teach them to respect boundaries. When you say no to tasks or requests that don't align with your values, you stay true to yourself. And when you stay true to yourself, the kindness you give is genuine, not forced. Many people struggle with saying no because they equate it with rejection or cruelty. They fear that by refusing a request, they will hurt someone's feelings, damage the relationship, or appear selfish. But the reality is the opposite. A no that is honest and respectful often strengthens a relationship because it communicates clarity. People know where you stand, and they learn to trust your yes because it isn't automatic. They know that when you agree to something, you truly mean it, and that makes your support more valuable. Think about the times someone said yes to you but later backed out, didn't give their full effort, or clearly didn't want to be there. Did it feel good to receive that half-hearted yes? Probably not. Now think about the times someone told you no but did it respectfully, maybe explaining that they didn't have the time or energy to commit. At first, the no might sting, but in the long run, it builds more respect because it shows honesty. That's the essence of kindness, not pretending, not overextending, but showing up with integrity. Saying no is also an act of kindness toward yourself. You protect your mental health, your physical energy, and your emotional well-being. You give yourself the space to recharge, to focus on your priorities, to take care of your responsibilities without being buried under the weight of everyone else's demands. This self-kindness is crucial because you can't pour into others from an empty cup. If you're drained, exhausted, or resentful, the people around you eventually feel it. But when you protect your own energy by saying no where it's needed, you show up to life with more strength and more genuine compassion. There's also another layer to this truth. Saying no teaches others valuable lessons. It reminds them that they are not entitled to your time or your resources. It encourages them to become more self-reliant instead of leaning on you for everything. It sets a precedent that your kindness is not limitless, and that respect is required if they want to share in it. In this way, your no becomes not just a boundary, but a lesson in mutual respect. The words no don't need to be harsh. They don't need to come with anger or guilt. They can be delivered with calmness, with softness, with kindness. A simple "I can't commit to this right now," or "I'd love to help, but I don't have the capacity," or even "No, that won't work for me," is enough. The tone, the honesty, and the respect in your voice make it clear that your no isn't rejection of the person. It's simply a choice about what you can realistically give. And people, even if they don't always show it immediately, respect that clarity more than a forced yes. This is why saying no is not the opposite of kindness, but a deeper form of it. It honors your limits, it makes space for genuine yeses, it protects your relationships from resentment, and it teaches others that kindness is meaningful because it has boundaries. People test limits you don't set, And this is a truth that shows up in every area of life, in relationships, at work, within families, and even in casual interactions. Human nature has a way of probing for boundaries, often unconsciously. When there's no clear line drawn, most people will keep pushing to see how much they can take, how far they can go, and how much you'll tolerate. This doesn't necessarily mean everyone is malicious or intentionally manipulative. It's simply the way people learn what's acceptable and what isn't. If you don't set the standard, they'll create one for you, and more often than not, it will be one that benefits them rather than protects you. Think about a child testing their parents' patience. A child might push bedtime back by 5 minutes, then 10 minutes, then 20. If the parent never enforces the rule, the child learns that the rule doesn't really exist. The same thing happens in adulthood. A coworker might ask you to cover one small task. You agree, even though it isn't part of your responsibility. The next week, they hand you a bigger task. Before long, their work is sitting on your desk while they move on freely. What happened? They tested the limits, and because no boundary was enforced, they discovered they could keep going. Boundaries are not about shutting people out. They are about teaching people where respect begins. Without them, you are giving silent permission for others to decide how they treat you. And most people, even the kind ones, will take the easier road if it's offered. They will choose their convenience over your comfort if you never speak up. The truth is, people are not mind readers. If you don't communicate what is acceptable, they will assume everything is. And every time you stay quiet, you reinforce that assumption. Testing limits shows up in subtle ways too. Friends might make jokes at your expense, and when you laugh it off, they push a little further next time. A partner might dismiss your feelings once, and when you let it go, they repeat the pattern again. A manager might overload you with assignments, and when you deliver without objection, they assume you can always handle more. Each small test builds into a larger pattern, until one day you look around and realize you are carrying far more than you ever agreed to carry. The danger of not setting limits is that it slowly erodes your sense of worth. Each time someone pushes past your comfort zone and you allow it, a small piece of your self-respect is chipped away. Eventually, you start to believe that maybe your needs really don't matter as much. Maybe your role really is to absorb everyone else's burdens. Maybe this is just the way life is, but that belief is false. It's not the way life has to be. It's simply the result of unspoken boundaries. When you set limits, you aren't being cruel or selfish. You're giving people a roadmap. You're saying, here's where my line is, cross it, and there will be consequences. This doesn't have to be loud or aggressive. It can be firm and calm. It can be consistent and steady. And it has to be reinforced because people will always test again. They'll nudge the line to see if it's real, and when you hold steady, they learn that it is. Over time, that consistency builds respect because people come to understand that your kindness has structure, not weakness. One of the biggest fears people have about setting limits is that others will leave, get upset, or withdraw. And yes, some people will, but that reaction is revealing. The ones who disappear when you set boundaries were only there to take advantage in the first place. The people who truly care about you will adjust. They may not like it at first, but they will come to respect it. In fact, many will respect you more because deep down, people value those who value themselves. Every time you set a limit, you are teaching others how to interact with you. You are showing them that your time, your energy, and your presence are not free for the taking. You are reminding them that relationships are a two-way street, not a one-sided drain. And perhaps most importantly, you are reminding yourself that you matter, that your comfort, your peace, and your well-being deserve protection. People will always test. It's in their nature. But the outcome of those tests depends on you. If there is no resistance, the testing never stops. If there is a clear, steady line, the testing ends and respect begins. Value is lost when availability is unlimited, and this is a principle that applies to nearly everything in life, from material possessions to relationships to the way people perceive you. Scarcity creates appreciation, while excess often breeds indifference. When something is always there, always accessible, always easy to take, people stop noticing its worth. They begin to take it for granted, not because they are ungrateful at their core, but because constant availability dulls the sense of value. The same truth applies to your time, your energy, your kindness, and your presence. Think about how people react to something rare, a limited edition product, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, or a person who is selective with their commitments naturally attracts respect and attention. The rarity itself signals importance. Now think about something that's always available, something that doesn't require effort to obtain. People become careless with it. They don't treat it with the same caution or gratitude. This isn't because the thing itself lost value, it's because the perception of value faded through overexposure. When you make yourself available to everyone at all times, you send an unspoken message that your time is endless, your energy is limitless, and your needs don't come first. At first, people may admire your willingness to always be there, but soon, they stop seeing it as admirable and begin to see it as expected. They don't pause to appreciate that you made time for them because, in their mind, you always do. The act loses its specialness, and your generosity starts to feel invisible. Unlimited availability can also create imbalance in relationships. When one person is constantly giving, showing up, adjusting schedules, sacrificing sleep, or putting aside their own priorities, the other person can unconsciously start to believe that this is simply the way things are supposed to be. They stop viewing the sacrifices as sacrifices because they're no longer exceptions, they've become the norm. And when something becomes the norm, it rarely earns gratitude. Instead, it becomes the baseline expectation. This is why people often fail to appreciate those who are always there until that person finally steps away. Suddenly, the absence reveals what the constant presence had hidden, just how much value was being given. Only then do they realize that what they took for granted was in fact priceless, but by the time they notice, the damage may already be done. Limiting your availability doesn't mean withholding love or refusing to help others. It means placing a healthy boundary around your time and energy so that when you do give, it carries weight. It signals to people that your yes means something because it isn't automatic. It shows them that your attention is precious, not something to be demanded at will. By being intentional about when and how you give your time, you elevate its value in the eyes of others. This principle shows up even in professional environments. The employee who always says yes to every request often finds themselves overworked and underappreciated. Their reliability becomes invisible because it's assumed. Meanwhile, the employee who sets limits and chooses their commitments carefully is often respected more because their time is clearly valuable. The same rule applies in friendships, family life, and partnerships. If you are always the one adjusting, always the one reaching out, always the one bending, people will subconsciously assign less value to your efforts. It's not about playing hard to get or creating artificial scarcity. It's about recognizing that your life has limits, and those limits are worthy of respect. When you make yourself too available, you devalue not only your time, but also your presence. People stop pausing to recognize the cost of what you're giving. They stop saying thank you because they forget there's something to thank. But when you create space, when you step back and reserve your energy, your presence regains its weight. Value grows in balance. The right amount of availability fosters connection and trust. Too little creates distance, but too much creates disregard. The sweet spot is where your kindness is still accessible, but not endless. It's where people understand that when you give your time, it comes at the expense of something else, and that makes it worthy of gratitude. It's where people know that your availability is a gift, not a guarantee, and gifts are meant to be respected. When you treat your time and presence as valuable, others are reminded to treat them the same way. When you show that your availability has limits, the respect for your contributions grows. Because value is never found in what is limitless. It's found in what is intentional, selective, and meaningfully given. True kindness balances firmness with compassion, and this balance is what separates genuine strength from quiet resentment. Many people misunderstand kindness as softness, as endless patience, as saying yes to everything and everyone. But real kindness is not about pleasing others at the cost of yourself. It is about treating people with warmth, while at the same time standing firmly for your values, your boundaries, and your self-respect. When kindness is paired with firmness, it becomes powerful. When it is separated from firmness, it risks being dismissed, abused, or mistaken for weakness. Compassion is the part of kindness that understands. It listens, empathizes, and cares. It sees the struggles of others and chooses to respond with generosity. But compassion without firmness can quickly spiral into self-neglect. Without the grounding of firmness, compassion can make you give away more than you can afford. It can lead you into one-sided relationships where you are always the giver and rarely the receiver. Firmness is the balance that says, I care about you, but I will not allow you to disrespect me. It says, I am here to help, but I am not here to be used. Firmness without compassion can become cold and rigid. It may protect your boundaries, but it risks pushing people away. People may view you as unapproachable, detached, or unkind if your firmness lacks understanding. That's why true kindness is not one or the other, it is the merging of both. It's the ability to say no with grace. It's the ability to correct with respect. It's the ability to show love while refusing to tolerate disrespect. This balance is what earns lasting respect. Think about a leader who commands admiration. It's rarely the one who shouts or dominates. It's also rarely the one who bends to every request. It's the leader who shows empathy, who listens carefully, who cares deeply, but also who makes firm decisions, enforces standards, and holds people accountable. That leader embodies the balance of compassion and firmness, and that is what makes people both trust and respect them. The same dynamic plays out in personal relationships. A friend who always agrees with you, even when you're wrong, might feel supportive at first, but over time their words lose value. On the other hand, a friend who challenges you when you need it, who tells you the truth you don't want to hear, shows a deeper form of kindness. Their firmness proves that they care enough not to let you stay in harmful patterns. Their compassion ensures that the firmness never feels like cruelty, but rather like guidance. That's why such friendships last, because the balance of kindness is authentic, not shallow. In family life, the same principle applies. Parents who are only compassionate and never firm may raise children who lack discipline, who don't understand respect, because the boundaries were never enforced. Parents who are only firm without compassion may raise children who obey out of fear but never feel safe to express themselves. But parents who combine both compassion that nurtures and firmness that guides raise children who grow into balanced adults. Kindness without firmness often leads to resentment. You may find yourself constantly helping, constantly giving, constantly adjusting, but deep down you feel drained. You feel like others don't appreciate you, like your efforts go unnoticed. And that's because, without firmness, people aren't taught to value your kindness. They only learn to expect it. By introducing firmness, you reset that expectation. You show that your kindness is a choice, not an obligation. And when people understand that, their appreciation grows. Firmness is also a way of protecting compassion so that it lasts. Without limits, compassion burns out. You start to feel bitter, empty, even angry at the very people you once wanted to help. But when you place boundaries around your giving, your compassion remains strong because it's not draining you beyond your capacity. You can continue to be kind without losing yourself in the process. The deepest respect comes when people see that you have both. They see that you will listen, understand, and support them, but also that you will not compromise your dignity, your boundaries, or your well-being. They know that your kindness is genuine because it is grounded in strength. They know that your firmness is not cruelty because it is softened with compassion. That balance creates a presence people can trust, admire, and never take for granted.